AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
If your eyes are the windows to your soul, and your glasses are the windows to your eyes, then it's pretty important to find your perfect frames. That's why at Warby Parker, we've made shopping for eyewear as easy and fun as can be. Peruse endless styles in our stores, or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. To find your next favorite pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to locate your nearest Warby Parker store, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
October brings it all. Halloween parties, game day tailgates, crisp fall nights. At Total Wine & More, you'll find just what you need for them all. Whether you're hosting friends or enjoying the cool fall air, you'll find thousands of wines, spirits, and beers at the lowest prices. Mixing up something spooky? Total Wine & More is your cocktail central for all your Halloween concoctions.
With the lowest prices for over 30 years, you'll always find what you love and love what you find, only at Total Wine & More.
Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. See TotalWine.com for details.
Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
As a small business owner, you don't have the luxury of clocking out early. Your business is on your mind 24/7. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates that you can manage, all in one place. With LinkedIn's new tools, you can write great job descriptions and quickly get your post in front of the right people using deep candidate insights. You can either post your job for free or pay to promote it. Promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified applicants. At the end of the day, what matters most is the quality of your candidates. 72% of small businesses using LinkedIn say it helps them find high-quality hires. And you can boost your reach by adding a hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to get twice as many qualified candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/DTNS. That's linkedin.com/DTNS. Terms and conditions apply.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, October 24th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on the context of those stories, and help each other understand.
Today, ultra slim and light phones are dropping like flies.
Oh, no.
All over.
That sounds dangerous. I'm Jason Howell.
I'm Huyen Whitnow.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. Yeah, so I would say today's big story isn't big in the sense that everybody's talking about it, but it's big in my mind just from a curiosity standpoint. Earlier this week, Tom and Sarah briefly mentioned on this show that Nikkei's supply chain sources are claiming that Apple is drastically cutting orders for the iPhone Air to 10% compared to September. Now we have notable Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo also sharing that demand for the slim and light iPhone, by most suppliers, they're reducing their capacity by more than 80% by the first quarter of 2026. Some components expected to be discontinued by the end of this year. So major change there. And so I read this and then I remembered, like we actually just talked about on Android Faithful reports from last week, that Samsung has canceled, reportedly, of course, this is behind the scenes stuff, so not confirmed at this point, but canceled the Galaxy S26 Edge, which would be the follow-up to the S25 Edge that came out for the first version of it this year. A swift reversal, I would say, in its plans to try and carve out a new variant for its S26 lineup. And now we have a report by reputable leaker Ice Universe, pretty reputable, I'd say, sharing that the Galaxy S26 series, the whole series, might actually get its release date pushed by a few months to March of next year. Other leakers also pointing to a similar prediction. Some of those reports are suggesting that the cancellation of the Edge series could at least be a piece of the puzzle. And so I guess the big question that I have about this is, how do two major companies who are have pretty good track records, I'd say, at getting some of these things right, and granted, you can't get everything right, but they both were on the slim and light train with the iPhone Air and then the S series, the Galaxy S Edge. They both, really carved out and kind of made a case for like, this is another major part of our offering. And yet it really seems, in fact, KeyBank Capital Markets found, quote, virtually no demand for the iPhone Air. And, we're kind of hearing the same thing about the S25 Edge. I'm just curious how they get it wrong. Like that's so crazy to me.
Yeah, it really seems like a lot of manufacturers are coalescing on the idea of people want a slim phone just because phones have, I guess phones have gotten definitely taller and like thinner, but like not a lot thinner. A lot of times, even with a case, they feel like bricks in your pocket. So it seems like they were responding to, something. And then I think even like we've covered other companies like Motorola's coming out with their own version of an Edge and Slim. So I wonder whether this news is going to affect that as well. Like if they're seeing that Apple, oh no, Apple and Samsung are already getting out of the Slim game. Ha ha ha.
Well, that means we can be the ones that offer it. Yay.
Yeah. Jason, you got to use like the Edge. Like, did you, is it that maybe and I've heard so many times over the years that I think a lot of us miss the days of smaller phones that are more easily portable. Lady pockets are kind of infamously small, but even just the idea of having, what can be a big brick in your pocket is not appealing to most folks. Did you find that your experience with the Edge kind of wowed you or made you think of days when, we had smaller phones and less, like stretching of fingers trying to reach these tall ass screens? Excuse me.
I mean, it's a thinner phone. It's not necessarily a smaller phone was kind of my experience, right? Like it's still more or less the screen is basically the same size as most other phones that I use. It's just the thickness quotient was definitely a good deal smaller. I kind of found my time with the Edge to basically be, oh, that's neat, but it really didn't go much further than that, especially when you consider the trade-offs. It is more expensive. I think we were looking at it prior to recording, and the S25 Edge is what, $1,100? So it's not priced inexpensive. It's not like you're getting a smaller phone and you're paying less for it.
Yeah.
You're getting one less camera as far as the Edge is concerned. You're getting a thinner phone, yes, but you're also getting a smaller battery, and battery anxiety is something that largely I think people have, thankfully, we have stopped experiencing quite the way that, at least in the Android world, we experienced, say 5 or 10 years ago even.
Yeah.
It's different now, and it's hard to go back to battery anxiety land. It's hard to like suddenly find yourself considering the fact that, oh, I might not make it through the day when we've become so used to it. So, but how much is the general consumer looking at an iPhone Air or an S25 Edge and thinking that, like, is a general consumer looking at this phone and going, well, that's great, but will it last throughout my day? Will I have battery anxiety? I'm not certain that they all are, thinking of it that way. Maybe they are.
It also seems like kind of odd. I think it's like, where does this phone fit in the lineup? Because they are not cheap phones. They're like upper mid pricing or lower, lower upper middle. Like they're not, as you said, they're not cheap phones. And I just feel like just comparing, a $1,100, $1,000 slimmed down phone with some trade-offs, but that, has that, light, very carryable, characteristic. I just like it feels like, I wouldn't say they're cannibalizing their other offerings, but it's a kind of a funny place to sit, isn't it? Like I feel, especially with both Samsung and iPhone, and I mean, like most manufacturers, but like specifically Samsung and iPhone have just so many different offerings, like at already so many different levels. It just feels like it's kind of confusing. And that maybe they don't have a clearer, even with the thinness, the fact that, as you said, there's plenty of trade-offs like battery. It maybe there's just something about it just not fitting in, or it just seems like an oddball, and that maybe it might lose out amongst like kind of like, especially for like Samsung and iPhone, kind of like all the very long history of, for example, the S series with the 3 models. People know it. People understand kind of like the trade-offs of all 3. And then you get this edge in there. And it just feels like, I just don't get the story there necessarily unless, and I just don't find thin, not necessarily smaller, as you said, thin, I just don't see how it just really distinguishes itself in a significant way other than being thin, which I kind of have doubts on whether that's a good story for selling yet another phone within like these very well established like lines of phones. I don't know. That's kind of my take. It just feels kind of an odd duck.
Yeah, well, it is. I totally agree. I think really when it comes down to it, it's about value. And both Apple and Samsung decided, and I don't argue that there's probably some really interesting and significant engineering feats that went into these phones to make them the way they are. Like that, no question. That's probably why we haven't seen it before, is because they've figured certain things out. Of course, the iPhone Air, iFixit said that it was very repairable and very strong, which goes counter to the thought that a lot of people have, which is, it's thinner, it's going to break a lot easier, it's going to be more difficult to repair components. That apparently wasn't the case. So from an engineering perspective, it's probably a really great story.
Yeah.
But I think from a general consumer, my guess is, as a general consumer, if I go into a store and I see something that is thinner, which kind of indicates something less than a thicker phone, right? Maybe less capable, less camera, smaller battery, all these things. My mind immediately goes to, okay, well then that should be lower cost versus the more premium things.
Yes.
And I think that my guess is that these companies placed a premium on the thought that these things were engineered in a way that they can get thin and light. And that's what people are willing to pay more for, is the thinness and the lightness. And maybe that didn't line up with what consumers actually believe, which is, okay, well, that's nice to have, but like at the end of the day, like this just feels like I'm paying more for less. And you know what I mean? There's not as much perceived value in the thinness and lightness from the consumers as maybe the companies believed there would be.
No, I think that's really fair. And I can kind of see how OEMs are kind of getting into a weird spot because, and we've talked about, like, for example, Counterpoint Research, who does a lot of issues a lot of reports about trends, like in terms of where specifically smartphone manufacturers are going, like what's driving, what kind of units they're shipping and what kind of like their focus is. It's weird because it's like from a regular consumer level, we've talked about this at length on various shows about how, especially the last 6 years, people are much more economically conscious, especially with purchases like smartphones. People want to hold on to their phones longer. They want a little more value and be able to hold on to that value. And at the same time, I think Counterpoint has noted that companies are actually increasing their profits through premiumization, which is basically getting you to pay more for something that may be marginally better or that is perceived to be better, but may not necessarily be better. And I wonder if this is
shrinkflation.
Yeah, shrinkflation, exactly. And it's so weird because somehow it's working, because while most consumers are more price conscious and value conscious, it's a stat that companies are increasing their profits in a significant portion due to premiumization. So I can see, as being an OEM, how do we keep playing that weird balance of giving most consumers that the impression of value and continued value for their money, but also keep, I guess, exploiting this like that's a hard word to say, premiumization of the market. And I also kind of feel like that is part of it too. Like part of that, they're thinking that, hey, maybe something else that we can sell is the thinness. And then, as you said, it seems to be not there's a disconnect there in maybe what they labeled as like a premium feature thinness, because it does require a lot of engineering to make it that way. And then it's just, as you said, the consumers just don't see smaller phone, less phone should cost less money. And I just, maybe that's just the wall on this facet of premiumization, is that this is one area where people just don't want to, I guess, this is not something that people want to invest in, like thinness.
That's probably it. I should also mention that Tom Merritt, we were chatting a little bit in Discord prior to the show, and he reminded me this morning that Samsung used to release their major Galaxy phones a bit later in the year. So the connection to the Edge stuff going on and the potential delay of the Galaxy phone release They could be unrelated. They also could be related, or at least partially part of a whole cornucopia of reasons why they might push things off. So I wanted to make sure that we got that word in there too.
I guess we'll have to see maybe in a year or two whether they come back to, thin phones, edges. And it'd be really interesting to see, for example, or what OEMs like Motorola and other companies that are trying to do their own version of slim/edge phones do in the next year, given that Samsung and Apple are exiting.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see.
Very curious. Very curious.
All right. Well, DTNS is made possible by you, the listener. And this is where we take time to thank wonderful folks like John Atwood, Pat, Mike Cortez, and welcome new patrons, Valentin, and George.
That was one clap for each of you. I don't know if you heard that. That wasn't an accident. Now many. Okay.
There you go.
As a small business owner, you don't have the luxury of clocking out early. Your business is on your mind 24/7. So when you're hiring, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That hiring partner is LinkedIn Jobs. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates that you can manage, all in one place. With LinkedIn's new tools, you can write great job descriptions and quickly get your post in front of the right people using deep candidate insights. You can either post your job for free or pay to promote it. Promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified applicants. At the end of the day, what matters most is the quality of your candidates. 72% of small businesses using LinkedIn say it helps them find high-quality hires. And you can boost your reach by adding a hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to get twice as many qualified candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/DTNS. That's linkedin.com/DTNS. Terms and conditions apply.
Why does every recipe I try need 18 ingredients, including a jar of something paste I'll never use again, but will sit in my fridge for 9 months? I just want dinner in the oven, fast. That's why I love Blue Apron's new one-pan assemble and bake meals. They send you fresh ingredients that are already chopped. All you do is put it all together and bake. That's it. No chopping, no weird leftovers, just delicious, easy-to-make meals. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
If your dog could talk, they'd beg for Ollie. The full-body tail wag, the excited little hops, the big, goofy grin, that's the Ollie effect. Ollie delivers clean, fresh nutrition in 5 drool-worthy flavors, even for the pickiest eaters. Made in U.S. kitchens with high-quality, human-grade ingredients, Ollie's food contains no fillers, no preservatives, just real food. Just fill out Ollie's 30-second quiz and they'll create a customized meal plan based on your pup's weight, activity level, and other health info. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/healthypup, tell them about your dog, and use code HEALTHYPUP to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/healthypup and enter code HEALTHYPUP to get 60% off your first box.
If your eyes are the windows to your soul and your glasses are the windows to your eyes, then it's pretty important to find your perfect frames. That's why at Warby Parker, we've made shopping for eyewear as easy and fun as can be. Peruse endless styles in our stores or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. To find your next favorite pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to locate your nearest Warby Parker store, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
There's more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
All right, well, Apple warned that it may disable its app tracking transparency feature in Europe due to what it calls, quote, intense lobbying by advertisers and regulators in Germany and Italy, among other countries in Europe. So app tracking transparency, ATT, is a feature that gives users control over cross-app tracking by asking for permission before tracking activity across apps and websites on iOS and iPad OS devices. Apple admits that such a move would be a detriment to European consumers and that they will continue to push for the tool in those areas if they choose to disable it. So this follows a preliminary assessment in Germany that ATT could be anti-competitive in its current form. And Apple received a fine, in fact, in France 2 months ago related to ATT as well.
Yeah. So regulators in this regard, I was kind of looking into this, like what exactly is the anti-competitive aspect of this? And really what they're looking at is that Apple is potentially using, I guess you could say, like the privacy, they would say, as kind of like a weapon or kind of a wedge. Its own apps are exempt. It also applies pressure on ad-dependent competitors. That's why the anti-competitive nature of this exists, or at least the opinion exists. Essentially, they see this as Apple being self-preferential in how this AT&T, this ATT app tracking transparency feature is implemented.
Wow, that's a good one for Apple, to be honest, because all of that is a bit hard to read at first. And I definitely was confused when I read anti-competitive, because on the surface, letting someone know when your data is moving across apps seems like a good deal. But wow, okay.
But as far as consumers are concerned, like I think consumer pushback on this also is, but we do want to know these things.
We do want to know these things.
Obviously, if there's an anti-competitive aspect to this that Apple is applying to others and not to its own, that's something to consider. But it's kind of one of those situations where it's baby with bathwater sort of thing. It's like, well, okay, now you don't get it at all.
Yeah, no, that's
and
just
I think
really
consumers
good,
do want that control, right?
No, and they just, honestly, I think we all deserve that kind of level of transparency on where our data is going. But just interesting, that leverage that Apple has on it.
For sure. Intel's Q3 earnings call revealed that the company is in a cautious recovery period. It reported its first profit in 2 years, so that's the good news. Intel CEO Lip Bhutan said chip shortages will persist into early 2026, and the company will put more resources into AI server production while also limiting its consumer CPU output. Now, much of its recovery is due to some financial lifelines, much needed lifelines that it got from partners like NVIDIA, SoftBank, and the U.S. government. So that's part of the reason why they're kind of seeing their first profit here. So I guess you could put a little asterisk next to that. They've helped stabilize company operations after a few challenging years. Intel plans to slowly roll out its upcoming Panther Lake chips, starting with a single SKU this year, followed by others in 2026. Intel also said that yields on its 18A process aren't where they want them to be. So they're suggesting that profitability might not arrive until 2026 or 2027. So, slow recovery, more methodical, I'd say. Definitely seems to be guided a little bit by AI over kind of what consumer demand is with the company, but that's what you got.
Well, all right. Well, speaking of AI, Anthropic has struck a partnership with Google that gives them access to up to 1 million of Google's tensor processing units in a major expansion of its compute capacity. The deal will bring more than 1 gigawatt of capacity to Anthropic's service in 2026 and is Google's largest TPU deal to date. Unlike its rivals like OpenAI, which is pursuing a 33 gigawatt arsenal with Stargate, Anthropic is splitting its workloads across Google TPUs, Amazon Trainium chips, and NVIDIA GPUs in a multi-cloud strategy that will allow it to fine-tune for price, performance, and power efficiency. This deepens Google's investment in Anthropic, which is already totaling $3 billion.
Yeah, I think the diversification aspect of this, with the structure, that's important. It could lead to the company just being over time, a little more resilient, obviously a lot more flexible when you're talking about a diversified kind of approach. And especially as Anthropic is scaling over time, that could really, be a big benefit to them.
It's really interesting because I think there's some, it's because right now we're kind of in the current AI escape that we're in. It's so fascinating to see, who partners with whom. And it still feels like there's a lot of interesting seeming competitiveness because obviously Google has its own, its own AI kind of offerings, but just how these different companies interact and whether it's like a high tide lifts all boats where the more that they can interact and can be interoperable with each other, Because I know some like services will offer you, hey, you could use ChatGPT or Claude or this. It's just interesting how the landscape is shaping up because they're in competition, but also in collaboration. And I'm not sure if there's some interesting implication from that because I'm not an economist. But yeah, this is fascinating.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm sure that works on some level across the partnerships that you're talking about.
For sure.
Mozilla will require all new Firefox extensions to clearly disclose how they collect and share user data beginning November 3rd, 2025. So that's just a couple of weeks from now. Developers will be required to specify data practices in each extension's manifest.json file using a new data collection permissions key. It will specify whether names, emails, or browsing activity are gathered with that extension. The gathered information will then appear in installation prompts, extension listings, and Firefox's add-ons manager, so they become kind of more transparent. Extensions that collect no data must explicitly say so, and those who do not comply will be blocked. All extension developers must have this framework in place. That there's like a mid-2026 deadline for like the must have in place or else date. So this is coming up. I mean, as a developer, you know, I mean, I know you probably don't create Firefox extensions, but how does this strike you?
I think it makes sense. So I am an Android developer, and some years ago, a similar requirement took place, like kind of was introduced to the Google Play system, where we actually do have to fill out very specific, or we have to answer very specific questions on what data we use, and even give reasoning for them, and that information is available to users in the App Store. So I just feel like this is very familiar. In my life, it's slightly onerous, but at the same time, I feel like it's definitely the way we should be going. And I just think it's so interesting, like the little things like if you collect no data, you must explicitly say so, because there is an attempt here from companies to hold developers to account and to introduce some sense of like, you know, responsibility, liability, maybe even, I don't know, but like kind of nearing towards that in regards to, you know, being this transparency and owning up to it and honoring that. So I like it. And hopefully it's not too much of a pain for extension developers.
Yeah, indeed. And finally, some quick headlines, you know, things that are good to know if you want to understand the news that comes in the future.
All right. Well, the latest update from Instagram has a few new generative AI tools that let users edit photos and videos using text prompts, similar to conversational editing features rolled out by Google to its photo service this year.
And Microsoft is celebrating the Windows Insider program's 11th anniversary with special anniversary wallpapers for its volunteer testers who have spent countless hours testing pre-built releases of Windows. And I just got to ask, like, why not at least like a t-shirt, like desktop wallpaper?
Anthropic's Cloud now has long-term memory features, allowing it to recall and integrate information from past chatbot conversations for paid subscribers.
Love that. And Netflix has reportedly shut down Boss Fight Entertainment, the studio behind the hit mobile game Squid Game Unleashed. That's the company's second internal game studio closure this year.
Well, you know, we're getting close to holiday times, and if you need a snazzy gift for a coworker or a colleague, guess what? We have dozens of ideas for you over at dailytechnewsshow.com/store. We have mugs, t-shirts, or mouse pads, all with our new DTNS logo. They're great gifts and a great way to support the show.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
If your eyes are the windows to your soul, and your glasses are the windows to your eyes, then it's pretty important to find your perfect frames. That's why at Warby Parker, we've made shopping for eyewear as easy and fun as can be. Peruse endless styles in our stores, or use our app to virtually try on frames and get personalized recommendations. To find your next favorite pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to locate your nearest Warby Parker store, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Yesterday, we mentioned the surge in downloads of the Zorin OS Linux distro, and today Mohan adds some further observations to that.
All right, well, Mohan writes regarding Zorin OS, that is great news. And I would like to point to, I'm seeing many people migrating over to Linux Mint and Ubuntu as I see the posts on their respective subreddit, R Linux Mint and R Ubuntu. It's good for new users of my choice of operating system.
Good. I'm happy it works out for you.
Yay.
I have not used that, so I can't weigh in, but I'm happy, Mohan.
Me too. All right. Well, what are you thinking about? Do you have some further insight into one of our stories? Share it with us. Feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Big thanks to Mohan for sharing perspective on yesterday's story and contributing to today's show. And thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. You can keep us in business by becoming a patron at patreon.com/DTNS. This week's episodes of Daily Tech News Show were created by the following people. Host, producer, writer, Tom Merritt. Host, writer, Jason Howell. Co-host, Sarah Lane. Co-host, Rob Dunwood. Co-host, Win Twit Dow. Producer, Anthony Lemos. Producer, Roger Chang. Editor, Hammond Chamberlain. Editor, Victor Bognat. Science correspondent, Dr. Nikki Ackermans. Social media producer and moderator, Zoe Detterding. Our mods, Beatmaster, W. Scottus1, BioCow, Captain Kipper, Steve Guadarrama, Paul Reese, Matthew J. Stevens, a.k.a. Gadget Virtuoso, and J.D. Galloway. Mod and video hosting by Dan Christensen. Music provided by Martin Bell and Dan Luders. Art by Len Peralta. Acast, ad support by Tatiana Matias. Patreon support from Bobby Wagner. And our guest this week, Andy Beach. And thanks to all our patrons who continue to make this show possible.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.